Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on procrastination, understanding the urge to postpone. My name is Miraya Gupta, and I'm a psychology student in grade 12. Procrastination is something that I struggle with, and more than my workload, my tendency to delay doing the work is what causes me stress. To me, procrastination has always had this connotation of being really bad. So it gave me considerable joy and validation to find out that some of the world's greatest minds, like Mozart and Leonardo da Vinci, were procrastinators too. And this made me think about why it is that we procrastinate. Our speaker today is counseling psychologist Tulika Lal, who founded All Heart India as a center for social and emotional well-being in Delhi. Her work involves therapy and counseling for children, young adults, and parents to promote positive mental health. She was a part of the team that designed the Delhi state government's mental health curriculum called the Happy Curriculum, the first of its kind in India. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Miraya, for organizing this. And I'm extremely thrilled to do this with you for the second time today. So, procrastination in general is a term many of us are familiar with and probably indulge in as well. But do we really fully understand what it is and why it happens? Gaining a deeper understanding of it can help break our tendency to slip into this cycle of delaying and actually identify the tools to do something about it. So, Miraya, it's great that you took the lead on wanting to address this topic.
I think the best way to introduce procrastination would be through this Kabir Doha that I'm sure most of us have heard when we're being told not to procrastinate. The Doha is काल करे सो आज करे सो अब, पल में परलय होएगी, बहुरी करेगा कब. Which translated into English means what you can do tomorrow, do today. What you can do today, do now. And if the moment is lost, the work will never be done. And I'd just like to say that at the risk of offending my grandparents, older extended family, and every Hindi teacher ever, it was very easy for Kabirdas to make such statements in 14th century Banaras, when college apps, exams, presentations, and deadlines were a thing of the future. We will cover the topics of understanding procrastination, the reasons for it, how it becomes a habit, and finally, what we can do to beat it. And now, coming to our first section, understanding procrastination. And the first question for our speaker: what exactly is procrastination?
So, before we talk about what procrastination is, let's look at what it isn't. We'll look at 5 statements to gain an understanding of where we all are on this topic.
So, statement one is all procrastination is bad. True or false?
So, procrastination in itself is not good or bad. Instead, the outcome as a result of it is. Most of us have a tendency to procrastinate for something or the other, but the degrees in which we do differ. And Miraya rightfully said that there are some great artists who have produced iconic and classic work as a result of procrastination. So, it can't be all that bad.
The second statement is procrastination is caused by laziness.
So, this statement is false. In both laziness and procrastination, there is a lack of motivation. Just that in procrastination, we aspire and intend to complete the task under consideration and eventually do complete it, whereas in laziness, we don't.
Great to know that all procrastinators aren't lazy. And now, moving on to statement three, procrastination is a time management issue.
So, this particular statement is false again. Many a times we think if we were better at organizing our calendars or notes, we wouldn't procrastinate. But often, planning and organizing is procrastination in disguise. It is more an emotion management concern than it is a time management issue. And so, any amount of timetables we make will not really help change the habit of delaying or avoidance. And as we go ahead, we'll talk more about what we can do to help this. So, moving on to statement 4.
All delay is procrastination.
The statement is false. So, while all procrastination is delay, not all delays are procrastination, like most of you said. Delay, which is not procrastination, is when you purposefully ask to schedule certain tasks for later so that you have more time to prepare for them. And in the case of procrastination, we know we should be working today, but instead say, I don't feel like it. I'm just going to do something else instead. I have enough time.
And now moving on to statement 5, the last statement. Do procrastinators care too much or too little?
So the truth is that procrastinators care too much. And we will talk about the why as we go further.
So now that we know what procrastination is not, let's take a look at what it looks like through a very lovable cartoon character.
No goofing off! I am about to write the greatest essay of all time. Okay, here we go.
Come on, SpongeBob!
It's only 10 o'clock! Now let's see how it looks so far. The bread time! Now let's see. White or rye bread? A visitor? For me?
In other news, local resident SpongeBob SquarePants only has a few hours left to complete his essay, and yet he continues to goof off. When will he learn?
Time's up, SpongeBob.
Only 799 words to go. No! What have I done?
Why didn't you just write your essay? Stop wasting time!
So here we saw that SpongeBob received the task of writing an 800-word essay. And while he intended to write it, it was seemingly difficult for him to actually get to doing it. And he rewarded himself with a long break after writing just one of 800 words and spent time checking the fridge and answering the doorbell. I mean, I know how many times I've landed up from my desk to the fridge in search of a cheese slice. And just to make it simpler, could you break down the stages of procrastination for us?
Yes, absolutely. So there are 7 common stages of procrastination that we all go through. The first one being indifference. So I have this task and I say, I'll start it tomorrow. So the task really isn't on our minds. We think we have a lot of time to complete it, and hence there is nothing to worry about. That is when we go to the second stage, which is denial. The due date is closer by now, and we start to feel the work pile up. We know we need to get it done, but something else seems more appealing, and we tell ourselves, I still have a few more days to complete it. So in SpongeBob's case, like you said, exploring that fridge and wanting to play with his friends and attending that doorbell was more interesting than actually getting to the paper. The third being realization. Now the due date is much closer and we can't put off work anymore. The fourth being panic. We are back to reality. We realize the urgency of getting the work done now. And at this stage, we pay for all that time we didn't utilize well. And here is where we are harsh with ourselves and we blame ourselves for not having started earlier. Coming to the fifth stage, which is bargaining. Now, at this stage, one usually needs to make sacrifices to get their work done. So perhaps compromising on sleep, skipping a meeting to do the work, or asking for an extension are some of the things that we may need to do. Sixth, working under pressure. Now, at this point in the procrastination process, we get to work. The stress induced by the deadline pushes us to work fast. And most times, this compromises the quality of our work. Going to the seventh and final stage, which is finishing the task till there is that next job due next week, and the cycle begins again.
I know these are definitely some of the stages that I go through when I have a deadline. And what the stages as well as the video very accurately represent is how the more we avoid work, the more it comes back to haunt us. Whether it was SpongeBob imagining a news report about him not having done his work, or his clock threatening him that his time was up. Which brings us to our next section, the reasons for procrastination. So, why is it that we procrastinate?
So, here is where I'd like to introduce the evolutionary perspective. Procrastination is a perfect example of a hardwired tendency to prioritize short term needs ahead of long term ones. So, back in the day, we weren't really designed to think ahead into the future because we needed to focus on providing for ourselves in the here and now. Research has shown that on a neural level, we perceive our future selves more like strangers than as parts of ourselves. And to bring this concept of future self more clearly, let's see a video.
So, you're not still gonna be his roommate when he gets married, are you? Someone's going to move out, so who's it gonna be?
Come on, Barney, I'm sure they've talked about who gets the apartment. You've talked about who gets the apartment, right?
Yeah, we've talked about it. So, when Lily and I get married, who's gonna get the apartment?
Oh, that's a tough one. You know who I think could handle a problem like that?
Who?
Future Ted and future Marshall.
Totally. Let's let those guys handle it.
Damn it, past Ted!
So, in this video, we saw there was a clear disconnect between the present and future self of the characters. Because of such a disconnect, when we do procrastinate, parts of our brain actually think that the tasks we are putting off, in this case, deciding who would get the apartment, and the accompanying negative feelings that await us on the other side are actually somebody else's problem. To make things worse, we are even less able to make thoughtful and future-oriented decisions in the midst of stress. The other reason is, when faced with a task that makes us feel so anxious or insecure, the amygdala, which is the threat detector part of the brain, perceives that task as a genuine threat, in this case, to our self-esteem or our well-being. Even if we intellectually recognize that putting off the task will create more stress for ourselves in the future, our brains are still wired to be more concerned with removing that threat in the present. And this is called the amygdala hijack. In fact, interestingly, research has also found that people with a tendency to procrastinate have bigger amygdalas.
It's great to know that, as always, we have evolution to blame for our tendency to put off work. And drawing from what you said, I think there's definitely a huge focus on the future nowadays, and especially for students. For example, I have an English test next week, which I know is going to affect my marks, which will affect the kind of college I get into, which will affect the job I can get, which will then affect the kind of life that I can have.
Yes, absolutely. And like your English test, it could be a job application someone has been meaning to send, work presentation and deadlines, filing taxes, or even having a difficult conversation with your family or partner. So every individual has their own set of things to grapple with and repercussions to deal with. In addition to this, as compared to our ancestors, we do live in very competitive, or should I say highly driven times, where, like you said, any task that we consider important is related to our future. And this can really be distressing. And this is exactly the reason why procrastinators care too much. So if we were to break this big thing down, it starts with how we feel one task at a time. And before I do elaborate on this, let's see another video in the present day context of this gentleman who has an important issue to address, but can be said to be procrastinating.
Look, I've thought a lot about how to tell you this, and the bottom line, Ross, is we cannot stay married.
You know what this is? This is a difference of opinion. And when that happens in a marriage...
Oh, Ross, come on! This is not a marriage! This is the world's worst hangover! Ross, listen, if you do not get this annulment, I will.
All right, I'll do it. You want to hear something weird?
Always.
I didn't get the annulment.
What?
We're still married. Don't tell Rachel. See you later.
You didn't
I know.
Ross!
Well, I tried, but when I got to my lawyer's office, all I could hear was, 3 divorces, 3 divorces. Yes, in that high voice. Look, I just don't want my tombstone to read Ross Geller, 3 divorces.
I cannot believe that you didn't tell me we are still married!
Look, I was going to tell you.
When? After the birth of our first secret child? Ross didn't get the annulment. We are still married.
What?
Oh my God! Ross!
Okay, maybe it wasn't my best decision, but I just couldn't face another failed marriage.
So in this video, we saw a couple, Ross and Rachel, discussing getting their marriage annulled. The man, Ross, was clearly uncomfortable with this idea. So can you explain to us what went through his mind that caused him to procrastinate?
So there can be 3 reasons for it. The first one being an inability to manage negative emotions around a task, which is what can lead us to fall into this irrational cycle. And like we discussed in the evolutionary perspective, we focus on the immediate urgency of managing these negative moods than actually getting on with the task. So from the video, one can see that the man did not want to get divorced, and while his wife felt otherwise. So not being able to convince her, it was just easier for him to feel better by not getting to it immediately. The second reason is that procrastination is also a way of coping with challenging emotions and negative moods like boredom, anxiety, frustration, and a lot many more things induced by certain tasks. And it's important to note that it isn't a character flaw. In the man's case from the video, once it did sink in that he would have to get it done anyway, he realized it would be his 3rd divorce in 2 years. And of course, he had a lot of emotions to address with the thought of getting it annulled. The third reason is this avoidance and aversion can depend on the given task or situation. So it may be something inherently unpleasant about the task itself, which could be having to clean a dirty bathroom, or organizing a long, boring spreadsheet, or even writing a 5,000-word research paper. But it might also result from deeper feelings related to the task, such as self-doubt, low self-esteem, or fear of failure, criticism, rejection. In Ross's case, he was worried about the label he would get, about what people would think, his own self-respect, etc., which delayed his visit to that lawyer. Now, drawing from SpongeBob, the first video we saw, staring at that blank document, he may have been thinking, I'm not smart enough to write this. Even if I am, what will people think of it? Writing is so hard. What if I do a bad job? All of this can lead us to think that putting that document aside and checking the fridge and getting that cheese slice is probably a very good idea. And we must realize that at its core, procrastination is about emotions and not productivity.
Yeah, that's so true. And it explains why I'm putting off studying for my test. It's because I know how important it is and how much rests on it, and I'm afraid of doing badly in it. And that brings us to our next section, why procrastination becomes a habit. Many times, even when we realize that procrastination is not helping us, we tend to do it repeatedly. So what is it that causes procrastination to become a vicious cycle?
It's a great question. The momentary relief we feel when procrastinating is actually what makes this cycle vicious. So in the immediate present, putting off a task provides relief, which means you've been rewarded for procrastinating. And we know from basic behaviorism that when we are rewarded for something, we tend to do it over and over again. And this is precisely why procrastination tends not to be a one-off behavior, but a cycle, one that easily becomes a habit.
So it seems like avoidance of a daunting task can become almost like an addiction, which is why some of us who've experienced the effects of procrastination do it again and again, despite knowing that the results aren't going to be good. So what can we do to break this cycle?
One thing we can do is break up a task into smaller bits and reward yourself when you get one part done. Now, this is something we all have been told, but no one really tells us why it is so effective. The reason is our brains are always looking for relative rewards. And to rewire any habit, we have to give our brains something called the bigger, better offer. So, in the case of procrastination, we have to find a better reward than avoidance. One that can relieve our challenging feelings in the present moment without causing harm to our future selves. So, what this does is instead of rewarding ourselves with momentary relief, which is a win lose situation since we don't get the work done, we'd rather have a win win where we get the reward and the job both done. This way, you give yourself a reason to get back to work and break this habit loop of procrastination. And this reward could be included, like it could include treating yourself with that decadent dessert you've been meaning to have for a while, or say even take a 30-minute break. So the bigger the task you accomplish, the bigger the reward you can give yourself. And I'd like to mention here is that the solution must not depend on anything but ourselves.
And now that we know why we procrastinate, we can better address how to avoid this behavior in the first place, which brings us to our fourth section, what we can do about it. And as we transition here, we have another poll for the audience. The question is, what would you think if you were close to an important deadline without having done much work? 1, everyone else must have done it already. 2, why didn't I start this earlier? 3, this is going to affect my job appraisal or college application or disappoint my parents. Or 4, it's fine, I'll manage it as always. So here are the results. So it seems like most people would feel it's fine, I'll manage it as always, while still quite a large percentage of people have negative emotions such as everybody else would have done it, or they self-blame and guilt. So what is it that we can do to beat these emotions and navigate through them in these situations that we back ourselves into?
So here is where I'd like to introduce a skill called after. So breaking up after into AFTER, A meaning awareness. That is, I have this important task and I feel like I want to do it later. So that is the first signal. Moving to F and T, which is feeling and thinking. So the thoughts and feelings associated with the task could be, why do I want to delay it? And how am I feeling? Are these tasks starting to overwhelm me? Am I unmotivated or lacking energy? What is it about this particular task that is intimidating me? Is there something that can help me get back to work? Moving to empathizing. That is, after being aware of all of these things, to finally saying, it's okay to feel this way, and I'm sure I will be able to manage, given I know what to do about it now, instead of being harsh on yourselves and blaming yourself. Moving to R, which is rewiring. Knowing what to do and then proceeding after having taken stock of the various challenges and how they can be addressed to break this habit loop.
After is a great acronym because it reminds us of the fact that we want to postpone the work to after, but we actually should be working on it now. But it does seem difficult to carry out this internal conversation with ourselves. So how can we actually apply this skill?
You're very right, Miraya, and I always say that it is easier said than done, and practicing a certain skill for the first time can be difficult. So let's do some role plays to explore how this skill can be used. We'll introduce 3 situations, and these are conversations between the mind and the person. So Miraya will play the role of the person and I will play the role of her mind. In the first situation, we'll explore what usually happens when we are faced with tasks that we perceive as difficult and we have a tendency to postpone them as soon as they seem too big to handle. So, scene 1, action.
I have a presentation to do for Monday and we already have 2 tests scheduled for the same day.
Oh God, that's a lot to do.
I'm feeling tired just thinking about doing this much work. Let me make a timetable for the weekend so that I can manage doing everything. I'll just start work tomorrow. I have 2 days, I can manage.
Yeah, good idea. I mean, I will be fresher tomorrow and can do a better job for sure. Why start today if it is causing so much stress? Anyway, according to that timetable, I don't start until tomorrow. Moving now to the second situation, which is the same scene, and we will apply after.
I have a presentation to do for Monday, and we already have 2 tests scheduled for the same day. And I'm really tired today. I'll just start work tomorrow.
Wait, did I just avoid this work? It may be a good idea to explore why I did that.
I'm feeling tired just thinking about how much I need to do, and I can't afford to do badly in these tests.
I know it is a lot to do, and it's natural that I feel this way given how important both things are. But don't worry, let me break it down and see what all I have to do to prepare for it well.
Yeah, that sounds doable. I can start off with the easier stuff today and then continue working tomorrow.
So here we introduced the skill after, and I'd just like to add that treating ourselves with kindness and understanding in the face of our mistakes is very important, especially because in the procrastination process, there is low self compassion and high stress. Research has shown that self compassion actually supports personal growth and motivation and decreases psychological distress. So, moving on to the third situation, we will see what you can do after you have already procrastinated and are potentially panicking close to the deadline.
My deadline is tonight and I haven't completed this presentation.
I'm doomed.
On top of that, I have 2 tests tomorrow that I need to study for.
Why didn't I start this earlier? It doesn't really help to think about all of this last minute, does it?
I don't know why I decided to start watching that show this weekend, knowing I had to do this. No college is gonna accept me. What will I do?
Well, it's okay. I guess I won't let it happen again. Let me make the best of the remaining time I do have now.
Okay, let me divide my time between studying for my tests and completing the presentation.
I can do this. So, this is the end of situation 3. And earlier in this situation, you would have noticed that initially there was a lot of judgment and blame, which is the natural tendency of our mind. And later, the tone changed and there was more empathy and forgiveness. Now, many of you may question how self forgiveness would be helpful after having made our work suffer. And would this not encourage us from continue delaying work? Well, what we do most times because of this thought process of ours is punish ourselves because we think that is what we are worthy of. Referring to another study that was done on first year college students, it was found that students who were able to forgive themselves for procrastinating when studying for their first exam actually ended up procrastinating less when studying for their next exam. It was concluded that self forgiveness actually supports productivity by allowing the individual to move past this behavior and focus on the upcoming examination without the burden of past acts. So, we really hope you will keep this in mind when you're having that moment of blame.
That was really helpful, and I'm sure that now many of us will be able to have these internal conversations and practice after. What are some tangible things that we can do to systematically avoid procrastination?
So, while there are many, I would like to suggest 3 that are usually quite helpful. The first one being mind mapping. Now, mind mapping means visualizing the task in our mind and navigating through it without actually having to do it at that moment. And this helps provide comfort to our brain since it allows for a layer of self deception of doing the task without really doing it at that moment. And at the same time, it helps you make a rough plan of how you would approach it when you finally get down to doing it. Instead of waiting to be in the mood to do a certain task, we would have started the process, which increases motivation, which is often followed by action. The second thing I'd like to suggest is making your environment as conducive to taking action as possible. So, in this, the first part would be keeping ready what you will require for your work. So, for example, uh, those workout routines that we plan to start on the first day of that week and then the first day of that month, we can ensure we actually get to them by keeping our workout gear and equipment ready the previous night so that we are reminded of it the first thing in the morning. Or it could also be that big project you've been putting off. Similarly, get everything in place the night before. Maybe keep the document in full screen mode on your computer so that it's the first and only thing you see when you open your computer. Flowing from this, the other thing is, of course, removing distractions from your work environment. Now, getting distracted can be very easy despite keeping these things ready. So if you know your tendency to browse through Instagram, Netflix, or Facebook, either delete the apps temporarily till you complete the task, or put a very long, complicated password to discourage you from opening them. The third thing and last thing that I'd like to suggest is writing down the when, how, and whys of procrastination. For this exercise, we'll give you a template to practice on. So this is purely a preventive measure where, without waiting to deal with a difficult task, we write down when are the times we procrastinate, which could be when we are faced with a difficult task. So naming these difficult tasks can be useful. The other thing is writing down how we procrastinate. That is the things we do to cope. Walking, surfing the internet, maybe doing another task. And finally, to writing down why we procrastinate. That is the feelings associated with the task. Is it causing me stress? Am I good enough to do it? What will people think? Etc. So by doing this, we can be more aware, know how to manage these uncomfortable feelings associated with the task, and in turn, break the habit loop of postponing things. It can also help us recognize a pattern towards what kinds of tasks we consider difficult and why on a regular basis. So these are three things that I'd like to suggest.
Thank you for that. It definitely gives us some stuff to think about and a lot to actually do as well. So just to bring everything together, a few of the most interesting things that I learned today. One, almost all of us procrastinate. Two, it's an emotion management concern rather than time management or a laziness issue. Third, it's important to recognize why we procrastinate. And lastly, to break the habit loop, we can practice after, and also a few of the things that you just mentioned now. And this brings us to our Q&A section. I think the first one, which is really interesting, is asked by Sana. And she asks, is it true that perfectionists have a tendency to procrastinate?
Sana, firstly, thank you for that excellent question. This link between perfectionism and procrastination has been and still is a highly contested topic in research. So let me try and answer this the best possible way I can. Simply put, one could say that a perfectionist is someone who strives for excellence in anything he or she takes up. And due to this tendency of theirs, there could be a lot of distress or anxiety around any task, which could cause them to procrastinate. So if your question is, do perfectionists have a tendency to procrastinate? Yes. Like any of us, of course they do. But are they prone to indulge in procrastination more than others? No, they aren't. So while preparing for this webinar, I read some studies and a few stated that perfectionists actually procrastinated lesser than other people. Many studies also stated that perfectionism alone is not the reason one procrastinates. So personality traits like impulsivity, there's cognition and beliefs, nature of our goals and intention can also result in procrastination. However, what the two do share are irrational beliefs and excessive fear of failure. So perfectionistic concerns can generate this gap between the actual and the ideal self, which then contributes to procrastinatory behavior. But apart from that, it's not necessary that procrastinators are perfectionists or that perfectionists procrastinate. I hope I've answered your question.
So thank you for that. And our second question, which is also quite interesting, is does the use of technology increase procrastination?
Miraya, may I ask who asked this question?
It was an anonymous attendee.
Okay, thank you for your question. Technology was designed to make our lives better through convenience and automation. And thanks to that, it is possible to get our tasks done in a shorter amount of time with less effort. So, while the goal of technology advancement is actually to give us more time in order to allow us to do more during the day, instead, on account of the same reason, most of us procrastinate. And yes, if we let technology get the better of us, then it will. The good news here is that we can turn off our notifications. We can put our phones on silent or shut them down completely when we need to. So it is possible to form a healthy relationship with your gadgets by regulating your usage and seeing them as tools to make life more convenient instead of getting distracted by them. Hence, technology can't be blamed for all the distraction it brings to us, but in the end, it's still up to us to do what is right and not be distracted by everything that technology has to offer.
Another really cool question that's come in is from Sonal, who asks, is having writer's block a form of procrastination?
Sonal, thank you for your question. I am assuming you are a writer. So writer's block is a little different from procrastination. A writer's block suggests that you have an emotional barrier that prevents the written expression of your creative thoughts and is usually the result of feeling pressured when you have to meet a writing deadline or complete an assignment with no desire or direction as to how you will complete it. Now, in procrastination, you know what needs to be done and probably even have the inspiration for writing, but you just don't want to do it as yet and end up delaying it. Of course, we spoke a lot about the reasons for such a delay in procrastination. To help you determine which one you're dealing with, I'll quickly list out a few warning signs for both, which will perhaps give you more clarity. The signs of writer's block generally are a feeling of burnout, which could be due to working very hard, indecisiveness, that is not being able to settle in on an idea for your writing, or it could be a general lack of excitement for writing, or feeling uninspired and uncreative. Signs of procrastination are finding yourself doing everything other than writing, making excuses over why you can't write right now, or intentionally delaying the work even though you know you can and should be writing. So I hope this helps you differentiate between the two and help you understand.
Another interesting question from Rahul is procrastination a mental illness?
Rahul, thank you for your question. Procrastination itself is not a mental health diagnosis. It can, however, be a characteristic feature of some mental health issues. So it can be ADHD, so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. People with ADHD often have extreme difficulties with time management and organization and tend to procrastinate more often than other people. When ADHD co-occurs with a disorder called bipolar disorder, this may particularly be likely. The second is depression. So one common effect of depression is low self-esteem, which has been linked with procrastination. So individuals who doubt their ability to satisfactorily complete a task may be more likely to avoid or delay starting it. And then there is anxiety. So those who experience anxiety may tend to become more preoccupied by fear of failure. Lack of confidence in one's ability to complete a task can lead to procrastination in order to avoid failure in the short term. I hope I've answered your question.
And another interesting question, which was asked by Sanjana. At what point does procrastination become a red flag, and can therapy help with this?
Okay. So there are two parts to this question. The first part being when procrastination starts affecting every area of our life, that is, it occurs so frequently that it negatively interferes with daily functioning, then it becomes a red flag. So, in this case, therapy can help a person identify why and when they procrastinate, replace self defeating thoughts with more productive thoughts, and learn new behavioral strategies to cope with stress. The other thing is when procrastination is a symptom of a psychiatric condition or a mental health concern, medication and therapy to address this underlying condition can help reduce a person's tendency to procrastinate.
Thank you so much to everybody for joining us. And before you leave, just a couple of things. When you log out, you'll be redirected to a feedback form, so please give us your honest opinion. We will be sending you a handout with a summary of the content today, so do look out for it in your email. For more information about All Heart India, visit allheartindia.com or allheart_India on Instagram. If you'd like to our previous webinar on effective family communication in lockdown, please do email us and we will send it over to you. Thank you again, and we hope you have a very productive Sunday.